ROLF, in cooperation with relevant organizations, will continue assisting fellow Chinese, American friends, and friends of other nations to evacuate Ukraine free of charge. Depending on the passport and visa status of those seeking help, the evacuation settling locations include the United States and other safe transit countries. Our temporary reception site in Poland will provide free lodging and food for up to 30 days. For the purpose of the Ukrainian rescue operation starting from March the 5th, the rescue buses will depart from Lviv to Krakow, Poland at 1 p.m. local time every day. Anyone who needs assistance, please contact our 24-hour emergency rescue services immediately to register. Please refer to the following video for specific details.
Let's continue to focus on the situation in Russia and Ukraine. Although Russia had agreed to a temporary ceasefire with Ukraine in order to allow the civilians in Ukraine to evacuate, the Russian bombing attacks came right when the Ukrainian civilians were trying to leave. Let's now take a deeper look into this matter. Russia violates a ceasefire by bombing fleeing civilians from Mariupol. On March 5th, British media reported that the Russian Defense Ministry had claimed a ceasefire near two Ukrainian cities surrounded by Russian forces, Mariupol and Vonovaka, for the day, allowing civilians to use humanitarian corridors for safe evacuation. However, Russia violated the ceasefire agreement by violently bombing hospitals in Mariupol. Hospital doctors relied on light through windows and cell phones to tend to wounded Ukrainian soldiers in Mariupol. The hospital had no electricity, no heat, and not enough supplies of medicine, and doctors had gone more than a week without rest. With the patients lined up in beds and hallways, some huddled on the floor to protect themselves. After the bombing, Kyiv paused a plan that was supposed to evacuate more than 200,000 civilians from Mariupol and Vonovaka on March 5th. Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, expressed that the situation in the city is extremely serious. A safe humanitarian corridor must be opened as soon as possible so the citizens of Mariupol can evacuate to the safe areas.
As the Russian war crime escalates, many are counting on NATO to step in and engage in warfare against the Russian forces. However, NATO refuses to establish no-fly zone over Ukraine. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg stated on March the 4th that they will not be establishing a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Ukraine has repeatedly asked Western powers to impose a no-fly zone to reduce the ability of Russian forces to attack Ukrainian targets from the air. Nonetheless, after a meeting of NATO foreign ministers, Stoltenberg said NATO would not intervene in the war because it fears that a direct engagement with Russia will turn into a broader conflict. He also warned Putin that the West will launch a new round of tougher sanctions if there is no truce. After getting the news, Ukrainian President Zelensky said the NATO's refusal would give the green light for further Russian invasion, and NATO shall be held accountable for more death due to its own weakness and selfishness.
Banks cut ties with Russia amid Ukraine crisis. Since the Russian-Ukrainian war began, international institutions such as the World Bank have been racing to distance themselves from Russia and Belarus. On March 2nd, the World Bank announced that it will stop all its programs in Russia and Belarus with immediate effect. On March 3rd, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank (AIIB) issued a statement saying that in the best interest of the bank, management has decided that all activities relating to Russia and Belarus are on hold and under review. On March 4th, the Shanghai-based New Development Bank (NDB) of the BRICS bloc has put all new transactions in Russia on hold, citing the unfolding uncertainties and restrictions. As the Russian invasion continues, many countries, organizations, and companies, in addition to the international institutions mentioned above, are severing ties with Russia and imposing sanctions on the country. In the meantime, sanctions are also imposed on Belarus for allying with Russia.
Aside from banks, many other financial institutions also begin to show their attitudes towards Russia's invasion in Ukraine. According to a string of foreign media reports on March the 5th, MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal have suspended their operations in Russia. MasterCard Inc. and Visa Inc. said they would gradually cease all transactions in Russia. Within the next few days, all MasterCard and Visa cards issued by Russian banks will no longer be valid for any transactions outside the country, and all MasterCards and Visa cards issued outside Russia will not work within Russia. They also noted they would take actions to prevent Russian financial institutions from using their payment network. PayPal, which had only allowed Russian clients to conduct cross-border transactions in the past, is no longer accepting new users in Russia. PayPal's new policy in Russia applies to the money transfer tool Zoom as well. PayPal's competitors Wise and Remitly have reportedly suspended their services in Russia as well.
It looks like many financial platforms have stopped their services and operations in Russia. It means the world is uniting against Russia for their brutal attacks at Ukraine. Next, we have a case of a Taiwanese citizen showing his supporting for Ukraine. Taiwanese citizen tweets his application to fight in Ukraine to resist Russian aggression. Taiwan media reported on March 6th that in response to Ukrainian President Zelensky's global announcement of a worldwide call for international mercenary corps to fight Russian aggression, a citizen of Taiwan surnamed Huan recently tweeted that he has prepared various procedures for application to join the Ukrainian fight. The man reportedly showed his ID to prove his statement. He also revealed that he was a corporal in a communication battalion of Taiwan's National Army and had been commended as an outstanding non-commissioned officer by the Ministry of National Defense before he was demobilized. Ukrainian President Zelensky released a video announcement on March 3rd that he would establish a new military force of foreign citizens and invite people around the world to resist Russian aggression. The first 16,000 have arrived in Ukraine, and the country is also receiving weapons from friendly countries on a daily basis.
Next, let's take a look at information related to the Chinese Communist Party. Amid the Russian-Ukraine crisis, the CCP Winter Paralympics Games off to a cheerless start. On March the 4th, the official opening ceremony of the Winter Paralympic Games hosted by the Chinese Communist Party was even bleaker than the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics 1 month ago. In the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games, there were no leaders or top government officials from other countries present, except for the president of the International Paralympic Committee who showed up. In comparison to the opening ceremony of the 2008 Paralympic Games, which was attended by dignitaries from 18 countries. It's worth noting, though, while Xi Jinping specifically attended the open ceremony of the Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia in 2014, Putin chose to invade Ukraine between the CCP Winter Olympics and the Paralympics, resulting in not many people care about news about the Paralympics within the walls of Communist China.
When CCP was experiencing the cheerless opening of the Winter Paralympics Games, the annual two sessions were also quietly taking place. 330 deputies and members absent at the opening of the CCP's two sessions. The National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, and the National People's Congress, MPC, reportedly opened in Beijing on March 4th and 5th. 330 MPC deputies and CPPCC members were absent from the two sessions, including deputies and members from Hong Kong. It was the largest number of absentees ever. In addition to the absence of Hong Kong delegates due to the CCP virus pandemic, hundreds of mainland delegates were absent for unknown reasons, which has caused public concern and speculation. Among many absent delegates, Yang Chuan-tang, vice chairman of the CPPCC, has not been seen publicly since July 2021. Wang Zhengwei, vice chairman of the CPPCC, former chairman of the Inner Mongolia government Bu Xiaoling, Beijing Mayor Chen Jining, and Yuan Shuhong, former party secretary of the Ministry of Justice, who were absent from the 6th plenary session in November last year, have not yet confirmed whether they will attend the sessions. According to some analysts, serious infighting at the top of the CCP and the constant removal and investigation of officials should be one of the main reasons for so many absentees. This phenomenon implies that the CCP regime is in danger.
Apart from internal crisis within China, overseas Chinese companies are deep trouble as well. China's ZTE faces hearing over violation of U.S. probation. On March the 5th, Reuters reported that ZTE Corp, the Chinese telecom equipment maker, is about to face a new charge on March the 14th, alleging that it has violated a pre-probation regulation for illegally transporting U.S. technology to Iran. In 2017, ZTE pleaded guilty and paid a fine of $892 million after violating U.S. law by illegally selling U.S. technology to Iran and North Korea. At the time, ZTE pledged to accept a 3-year probation regulation, implement a corporate compliance program, and establish a monitoring mechanism. But in 2018, the U.S. Department of Commerce found that ZTE had lied and then banned ZTE from doing business with the U.S. ZTE has since paid another $1 billion of fine and again agreed to accept a 10-year probation regulation. The court charge on March the 14th was also related to ZTE's constant lying. According to the indictment, ZTE illegally brought Chinese citizens to work at its New Jersey office under the J-1 visa that is solely for working and studying at Georgia Tech. Hence, it was charged with visa fraud.
ZTE is not the only CCP company in trouble. The chairman of the SEC recently released a statement saying 250 of the CCP company may face delisting. The Western world is starting to take real actions to weaken CCP's power. SEC chair, roughly 250 CCP companies could be delisted in 2024. According to U.S. media on March 5th, the chairman of the U.S. Security and Exchange Commission, SEC, said in an interview this week that 250 Chinese Communist Party companies are expected to be driven out of the U.S. stock market in 2024 if they continue to fail to comply with the rules of U.S. listed companies. These companies include well-known major CCP technology companies such as Alibaba, Baidu, and JD.com. In 2020, U.S. investors suffered significant losses from this financial fraud of Luckin Coffee. U.S. investors realized that they were not aware of the financial status of CCP companies. Yet, CCP companies were still able to trade freely in the U.S. stock market. A crisis that forced the U.S. to introduce laws that would make CCP companies either delist or comply with financial transparency requirements, disclosing information related to whether they are held or controlled by a foreign government. The SEC chairman said that companies listed in the U.S. must comply with U.S. investors' protection rules, and CCP companies are certainly not exempt, especially to allow access to the inside of CCP financial audits, including the auditors themselves.
Lastly, let's zoom in on the weekly summary and analysis of the Himalaya coin. Contrary to the CCP's companies facing delisting and CCP-held events gaining no traction, the Himalaya coin has been growing steadily and achieving momentous milestones. The price of Himalaya coin has been floating around $40 for the past week, with average daily trading volume of about 70,000 H coins. Since the launch of H coin, the total trading volume is about 29.9 million coins, which is only about 2.99% of the total issued volume this year. At present, the trading of H coin is not yet fully open in the world. The market volume is low and the price is still seriously undervalued. This week, Miles Gore said in a Gather video that a new financial era of digital currency will be born after the Russian-Ukrainian war, just like the Bretton Woods system was born after the World War II. Digital currencies that use decentralized technology have stable coins, are anchored, and are not monopolized, are the true future of humanity. Miles also said on air that H-coin will not be associated with any evil forces and is a currency that represents justice. This week, Forbes posted an article about the Himalaya exchange with the headline, "Purchase of iconic McLaren vehicle through Himalaya exchange raises trust in cryptocurrencies." The highly sought-after car, driven in the past by Ayrton Senna, was bought using the newly launched Himalaya Pay app. The article states that the cars driven by Ayrton Senna are some of the most valuable collectible articles in the world. The transaction reflects the growing trust in the Himalaya exchange, particularly the HP app, and the growing belief in blockchain technology. The article points out that the Himalaya exchange is borderless, inclusive, and secure. It is the only cryptocurrency ecosystem that integrates native cryptocurrency HCM, stablecoin HDO, and the payment system app HPay on the same platform. Its mission is to empower everyone to control their own wealth and achieve financial independence. Miles also said on the live stream that Senna's godlike and legendary life has given profound significance to the deal.
This concludes our news and updates. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. EST. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.